Welcome to a new episode of the Wealth Blueprint. Today, Hattie Day is back from Modern Day Living. She's going to be a reoccurring guest. She's a property management and real estate expert. So we're going to explore a bunch of things on, we're entering the holiday season. We got Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, what to expect on rental properties, some things that you can do for your tenants, and how to protect your property as well. So a couple of different items going in there. But before we do that, I want to get into a couple of housekeeping items. I did just release, we changed the name of the podcast to the Wealth Blueprint. And we also have a free weekly newsletter. You can click here to subscribe to it. You can also go to addisontom.com and subscribe for free to the blog. The most recent one that I just put up today, I thought was something that would be interesting for us to discuss, was the fact that single family rentals are like outpacing multifamily, and the delta, the difference between the two is widened more than it's ever widened in history. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that, but wanted to get your opinion on that. Some of the data-driven sets that I've seen are, rental demand increasing for single-family rentals. Occupancy rates are over 95%. So it's like 95.6% across the nation for single-family rentals, which is insanely high for any rental community. A lot of multifamily companies operate on 85% occupancy to be making money. So like pushing to almost 96% for single family. Payment and delinquency rates are way lower on single family than multifamily. So you're collecting rent, there's less NSFs, there's less collections, there's less evictions. And then one of the other data points that surprised me, well, it didn't really surprise me, and you can probably elaborate on this a little bit more, was the fact that there's way less turnover. So people, like families, are renting single families and they're staying for years and years and years versus switching apartments every 12 to 18 months. What are you seeing on your side of the business when you're talking to tenants? Obviously they're shopping everything, right? They're looking at duplexes, single family, apartments, whatever. What are a lot of the feedback and comments you're hearing from them on why they want a single family versus multifamily?
Yeah, so it was interesting to me that you actually touched on that note, because that is exactly kind of what the data is showing on our portfolio as well. And it kind of, like you said, didn't shock me either, in a sense, because we have people that call in on a daily basis, and the first thing they ask is, hey, do you have any 4 bedrooms or 3-bedroom single family homes?
Yeah.
And it kind of gets to a point where we do have to talk numbers and it kind of lets tenants down, because they're looking for anything around 1,500, and we do have to get those residents that are looking for homes at that point into a duplex, because the price does fit that amount. But most of our prospects that are coming in are looking for a single family home. And I think that I put myself into the tenant's shoes, or the prospect shoes that is coming in. And I'm thinking about, what would I want if I was in their shoes? And I think that I definitely would agree that I would want a single family if I was renting. But I think there are pros and cons to diversifying your portfolio and making sure that you do have a home available for those people who can't afford that single family dollar amount, but then also have a spot to provide for the people that were looking maybe under that $1,500 range.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, thinking back on it too, like when I was younger, the last thing I wanted to do was buy a house. I mean, I bought a house and then I lived in it for a year, and then I rented it out, and I actually moved, and then I spent the next 10 years living in apartment buildings. And for me, as like a young single guy, it was just really nice to not have any maintenance, right? You get kind of a social aspect in a large metropolitan area, right? Like Chicago, where I lived, Austin, Texas, Los Angeles, and Las Vegas. I lived in high-rise condos, and all of those locations.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a social aspect, right? It's everyone's kind of like in your age range for the
Yeah.
most part. There's,
Mm-hmm.
common areas. They have a pool and a gym. And then I was traveling so much, it was really nice to just like lock the door and leave.
Mm-hmm.
But I spent so much money on that rent. And I know there's a lot of people out there, Grant Cardone, uh, Dave Ramsey, these guys, Grant Cardone specifically, like never invest in a house, like your primary residence, which there's some aspects to that I agree with. But like the amount of money I look back that I wasted on paying rent, some of that, the trade-off is like, well, I have the freedom. I'm not tied down to the debt, and I was traveling a lot. So for me, it made a lot of sense. But now, I have a family. I've got 3 kids at home. There's no way that I could live in a high rise. And we tried that. So Tracy, my wife, and I, we had our first daughter in Austin and brought her home. And I lived in, at the time, it was like a 1-bedroom apartment. And we have a crying baby. And I was like, this is not going to work. So I upgrade us to a 2-bedroom apartment. We moved to Chicago. And that was still really tight. We had a dog. There was like no yard to run around in.
Oh, wow.
The big, and this was like a townhome. So it was like in a mid-rise townhome. So there was a garage in the backside of the building, which the best thing ever about single family residences is that you have your own garage.
Yeah.
So I was going to mention that, like duplex versus single family home, even on the duplex side, you have a yard and you have a garage that you drive into and you just walk into the mudroom in the kitchen, right? Well, this is in Chicago. So we park in the garage. Then you have to walk from the garage across the little courtyard, and then there's no elevator. You had to walk up the stairs to get to your apartment.
Yeah.
My wife has a newborn. I'm at work. My wife has a newborn. She's like, imagine carrying groceries from the carport across and it's, -5 degrees outside and the wind's blowing. So that was brutal. And then we finally, we rented a house and then ended up buying that same house. And it's been a game changer. And so some of the data points that I was looking at too, that were kind of insane, when you look at why the shift to single family residence versus multifamily, the most obvious thing is COVID, right?
Privacy.
When you live in a large metropolitan area though, Chicago, you have to live downtown, right? New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Houston, Dallas, right? You don't have a lot of options because there's not room to build outwards. You're building up. So that's why you have these big high-rise buildings. Well, during COVID, so many people started businesses or took contracting jobs and left the city, or they never had to work in the city in the first place, right? It was like, hey, we're going to shut down the office. You guys can work from home. Well, why cram yourself into a city when there's like a health pandemic going on? You want to be as far outside of like high population areas as possible. So you had this huge like urban sprawl across the United States, and a lot of it, most of it's families. It's not single people or just, married couples with no kids. So as a family, you're getting spread out across the United States, not wanting to live in a large metropolitan area. Hence, single family residences are at all-time highs in rental demand, which I think is, great for us. Yeah. So when you're, talking to a client about single family versus duplex, is it really just an affordability issue, or is there any benefit to one of, being in a duplex versus the single family?
Well, now that I think about that, there are going to be some single families that we do have at a lower price. And so it's kind of almost a preferred or a preference for what that tenant is looking for. Like you just said, there are some different life circumstances that kind of push a prospect to a duplex or push a prospect to a single family or a loft or an apartment or whatever they're looking for. It kind of just depends on what that prospect is going through in their life.
How big is like proximity?
Yeah.
To like work or like school zone? Like, is that?
Yeah.
What's like the number one if someone's looking at a house,
Yeah.
South
Probably
Lubbock, North Lubbock, whatever?
yeah.
What's the number one?
So it's definitely going to be their proximity to their school,
School.
or their job that they're, or any like elementary school where their kids going. That's a huge one, because if they do have children, they're going to want to purchase or rent in that actual school district. And a lot of people that are deciding to purchase or live in a rental, that is the number one thing that we are hearing. The second one would probably be location, depending on their work, and how close they are to that. But I would think that it's definitely going to always differ from each person. And that's kind of how we kick it back to the basics. And we're just asking them, trying to find the perfect property that we have on our list. We're not just going to send them a list and tell them, hey, this is what we have available. We're going to try to find the perfect home that fits their life circumstance, I think, best.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think one thing I want to get across too, thinking through this after doing that research and like looking at the displacement during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
right? And where clients are moving or where tenants are moving. And, talking to clients, and we're in this like weird situation now. I mean, it's almost the end of November. And so all of our inventory, all of our clients have already gone under contract on property. Like we're not selling anything else from now until the end of the year because,
Mm-hmm.
we're not going to have time. And so talking to all of our clients, the thing that I'm really interested in learning from them is like, what are the preconceived notions that you have about real estate coming into this? And for so long, it was, I'm going to rehab and flip property because that's like the sexy thing to do, or multifamily,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, why was that? Well, the roles were reversed.
Mm-hmm.
So rental growth, demand, all of those things outpaced single family rentals. You didn't have, this big demand from the tenant side on single family rentals. So switching that mindset is important to be like, okay, where's the next 10 years going to go? Right. I think single family is, the numbers show it. Single family is absolutely where you want to have your money in real estate right now.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at multifamily, and I can hit this from a couple of different areas, financing's a lot harder right now because of these dropping occupancy rates, because of the lack of rental increase.
Mm-hmm.
So typically when you're looking at like a pro forma for a multifamily, right, it's all done on the cap rate. You have a 100-unit apartment complex. Hey, we need to be at 70% occupancy to break even. And then we're going to count on, and then that's going to break even. You're going to have ups and downs in occupancy. And then you're going to have your financing rate, which is typically variable. And those rates are a lot higher right now. And then you relied on your ability to fill up the apartment over the first 2 years, right? Mm-hmm. So I get to 90% occupancy out of my 100 units in the first 18 months that we're open. That's kind of your goal. But you count on the renewal that you can push that rent by, 2.5%, 3% or greater upon that renewal. And that's what really adds the value in your multifamily project.
Yep.
Well, if that metric went from 3% to 1.5%, and your occupancy rates and demand have slowed down, so it's taking you longer to get to 90%, the value of that property is substantially less than it would have been if you had 90% occupancy and 3% annual increases in rent. And those deals are still out there that you can find. It's just not as like widespread. And then I look at single family financing, way easier for you to get approved for. Rates are much lower. Less caveats from the bank on what they require from you for the financing in general. And then the proof is in the pudding with the numbers. It's like rental increases between 4 and 5%, 96% if I'm rounding up occupancy. And my tenants are staying for an average of, 2 years versus, 15 months or whatever the average is on a multifamily, right? So, looking forward, I think that's a great way to position yourself in the real estate market, really looking at where's the trend line going. you don't want to be the person that buys Bitcoin at $1.4 million per coin, right? You want to be the guy that buys it at $100,000 a coin and be able to ride the wave in the upward direction.
Yeah.
So part of the reason I wanted to have Hattie on today is we're going into the holidays, and Hattie talks to tenants and owners for endless hours every day on their expectations for, renting property coming into these months. And I want to go over a couple other like specific things with you, but what should an owner's expectation be going into these holidays for finding a tenant, getting them to move? And how does that compare to like other seasonality and rental?
Yeah. So I feel like we kind of all approach the holiday season as like, okay, we are chaos. We are getting presents ready. We are prepping for school parties. We are doing everything under the sun to get ready for these holidays. And so it does.
And you're spending money.
And you're spending money in other places.
Yeah.
And so typically people are not looking for a new home during this time. And that affects, sales, but also leasing side as well. I would say that I thought we were going to slow down, but it has been pretty hectic for us. I mean, we have been, leasing at a substantial amount during this first month of a slow season that we're considering.
Yeah.
But I would say that, it's cold outside. People don't want to rent a moving truck. It is definitely going to be something that is a little bit slower. I hate to compare occupancy rate to the season that we're going through, but I want to also put myself into the tenant shoes. And that's kind of what I'm talking to when I'm talking to my owners. That's how I'm explaining it to them.
Yeah.
Okay, how would you feel if you were, looking for a home in this time? You would be kind of pressed on cash. So how can we formulate a strategy to, incentivize these prospects to apply with us and get them to leave the current rental that they're in, because they might be approaching a renewal at this time and they're thinking, I don't want to move, but how can we stand out to them and capture those leads?
So what's working?
Yeah. So we are actually kind of going back to the basics and just reaching out to everybody that does have a vacancy. We have check-in points, throughout a half of a month. So we'll check in at 14 days, and then we'll also check in at another 30 days if we're hitting a vacancy point. But at that 14 days, we're really trying to hit something aggressive during this time. We have found that, letting owners know that they're actually in charge of their property is a huge thing. Some people don't know that they can sign more than a 12-month lease.
Yeah.
You are in charge of your property. You are in charge of what that lease looks like. You're in charge of that rent price. You're in charge of the security deposit if you choose to go that way. So please get with your property managers and have them be performing what you foresee, to be done on that property. So what we have started doing is actually offering a different term for lease terms. And so we're trying to get that renewal period to be during a busy season. We always want our renewals to be during the month of March through August. Is really that prime season when people are moving for school, jobs, whatever they're looking forward to. And so we are actually offering a free month to prospects that would be moving during this holiday season. And we are extending that lease term to from a 13 to an 18-month lease. And that's kind of depending on what their life looks like. We definitely don't want to sign something too long, but we want to make sure that we're getting that renewal period out of these 2 months that are consecutively just tend to be a little bit slower. Yeah, so that's kind of what we're looking at on incentives.
And that incentivizes them, like, well, you're going to have to pay for your move in, and then they get the free month.
Mhm.
Do they get credited the free month the first month, or is it the last month of the lease?
So it's always up to the owner. It depends on what that owner wants to do. I just talked to an owner recently, and we actually decided to do it for the second month because the second month would actually be their December month. So
Yeah.
they're going to be moving during the month of November. So we'll collect a prorated and a move-in fee. So the owner does get money into their pocket before the remainder of the year. But that tenant does get a free month of December. So they get to put all of those Christmas presents under the tree for their family and just kind of, have a lease that ends at a different time frame, because it's also stressful for the tenant in place that's doing the move.
Sure.
They're having to count those pennies almost to get to this
Right.
presents under the tree, anything that they're doing whenever they're moving.
It's a big expense, and it's a big time expense. You know, sometimes you got to take time off of work, and you got to coordinate a move. And
Yep.
if you've got kids and all that, it's hectic. Moving it, isn't that like one of the like largest stresses in a family's life is like finances, moving, and I think those are like the two biggest ones.
I think like a baby is the
Baby,
third one.
yeah, probably a baby. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Cody, what do you know about that, dude? Cody's about to get engaged. He's about to.
No way. You haven't told me about that. If you're leaving me out on that, I need to know.
Yeah.
Lexi, we're not going to talk about it because she listens to this podcast.
No,
so.
she doesn't.
No, she did.
Lexi barely wants to listen to us when we're in real life. So
we had fun together.
She's smart. The other thing I was curious about too is on, tenants that have leases that are renewing during this time, right? So they want to renegotiate. Maybe they think that they have a little bit of, negotiating power, because the last thing you want to do as an owner is be a little bit too hard on the renewal terms during this time. And then you could end up with a vacancy for 90 days because you hit, Thanksgiving, no one's moving over Thanksgiving. Then you might have a little window before Christmas, but then like Christmas and New Year's hits, and most of the time you're not getting any renters back until, after the new year. Then you have tax season, and then it's like going through February can be kind of a stalemate.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's our coldest month too.
Yeah. And it's so cold.
You want a tenant in place.
Yeah. And so how are you negotiating that right now? What are you recommending to clients on, lease renewals? Are you doing any incentives for them? What's working on that side?
Absolutely. So I believe that the renewal process starts at the beginning of the lease. Of course, you're making that relationship with that tenant, with that owner. We're touching base on their taxes, their insurance, anything that might cause a mortgage payment increase. And not only are we just kind of touching base on that and making sure that we are hitting that 2 to 3% increase on the renewal part, but does it make sense to do it if we aren't increasing the taxes and insurance at this time? We are in the November, December month. Is there any way that we can maybe even keep this the same for them? Can we increase maybe at a 1.5%? Can we give them a Visa gift card for their Christmas presents? What can we do to just make sure that we know that they're valued as we are sending this renewal out? Because sometimes you're also hitting tenants in these 2 months, and also January. I would include January in this as well, as a stressful time period where they're always thinking about money. And so if they're hit with oh my gosh, someone's asking me for more money again, it's just another person, they might get to the point where they're like, I'm not even happy with X, Y, and Z that has gone on during this lease process. I'm going to go ahead and not even renew. And so the process for renewal starts at the beginning, but there are different things that you can help, that you can put in place to help that resident kind of just know that they're valued and know that the reason that we're increasing this rent is because the owner does have a mortgage payment on it. They do have taxes. They do have insurance. And it's just not because we're cruel people and we hate our tenants. It's because we value them and also our owners.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and it's also, kind of to be expected. One thing about inflation is that it hits everything, right? And like housing costs are one of the hardest hit sectors of inflation. But there's a balance there too, because like you said, as an owner, as a property management, you're really in the people business, right?
Yeah.
You're managing expectations of other human beings and their family. And one of the most important things that you can do is put a roof over somebody's head, right? And so that's like a very, holistic approach that you guys take. So how are you, getting the increases that you need and like providing them some peace of mind? Like, hey, like, is it maintenance? Is it, the other thing I was thinking too is like, if you're renewing in November, maybe we keep the rate the same for the first 6 months.
Yeah.
Right. And then we're going to bump it up in the summer next year because everyone's rental rates are going to be a lot higher. And so maybe that's like the concession that you can make, right? Of like, hey, we'll keep it right now, but next summer we're going to renew for another 12 months and we got to bump it up by, $150 a month or whatever it is.
Yeah. And I think that that's something that you have to know your owner, know your tenant, and you should know before you reach out to that tenant what their situation is and what they're expecting. And so there should be no shocks or shocking moments whenever you're sending out that renewal. You should know that they're expecting this. You're kind of you're prepping them within that lease, because it does say in the lease that there will be a rent increase after that first renewal term.
Yeah.
And so there's just different things that you can do to kind of make sure that you're approaching a resident just in a kind manner, because they're people too, and they have problems like we do. And if we're not speaking to them in that way, then why would they stick around? And like you said, it's kind of up to the owner on what they want to do and put incentive in place for renewal. I have a lot of people that will hold and just sign for another year. I have a lot of people that will give Visa gift cards if they do renew within the first 2 weeks, because I think we talked about this on your last podcast, but it's also work for my agents to bring in that renewal, because we have to continually reach out to people to get them to sign.
Sure.
And so it's something that if we can get that signed within the first week that it's sent out, that is a win for my team. And we want to reward the resident for that, for just making our jobs easy.
I love that. Is there anything that you guys do for your clients over the holiday season or for the tenants?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually just sent out an email to our clients. We like to just kind of give them their privacy, but we're also always being proactive and helping them in the benefit for the owner. So we do kind of like pop by. So we'll kind of pop by and leave stuff on their door like, hey, just letting you know that if you do refer a client to us, we'll give you $100 off your rent, but we'll have kind of like a piece of candy. Was what our most recent pop by, because we're quite not into Thanksgiving week yet. But we did like something on their door where they were like, we let them know that if they refer a client to us and they sign a lease, we'll give them $100 off their lease, but it had a piece of candy for the kiddos at their home.
Nice.
Yeah. So I think
there's those little touches too. I think, some people are like, oh, it's like you're collecting $2,000 a month in rent and all you're doing is dropping it. But those little touch points are so big. Just to know from the tenant's point of view too, like they feel like, they are being seen as a person and not just like a checkbook that's paying somebody else's mortgage, right? Like, hey, there's like a relationship here. And, it's the same reason, like at ski resorts and stuff, when you show up, like all the little kids get cups of hot coffee or hot cocoa, hot coffee. Yeah. They get bourbon and
well, it's just like, when they're coming in, you're greeting them with a smile. It's something that you're in the relationship business, and you're in the business of helping people, and there will be issues, but it's how you fix those issues. It's how you send out the renewal. If you've done a terrible job the whole year, why would a tenant renew with you? So It starts at the beginning. And if you're not looking at it that way, then I think that you're kind of, doing property management wrong, because you should start that at the very root.
Sure.
And nip any problems that you see on the inventory and condition form in the beginning. And then it should be smooth sailing from there.
Yeah. So speaking of which, going into the colder months
Mhm.
and holidays, and people might be traveling,
Yeah.
tenants might be traveling, leaving their homes. What preventative maintenance are you suggesting that owners take right now,
Mhm.
just going into these months?
Yeah, so your property manager should definitely be reaching out to all of the tenants that occupy your home. So for occupied homes, you want to make sure that you're disconnecting your hose from your hose bib, and you're putting a faucet cover on top of those. We want to make sure that we're also keeping the heater on at least 65. Some people like it, warmer than that, but at least 65. If we are approaching, 30-degree weather, we want to make sure that we are opening cabinets, and those lower cabinets, not the upper cabinets, to just make sure that the faucets are getting that heater. I'm sorry, the pipes are getting that heater. And we're also making sure that the house is sealed correctly. We're making sure that the weather stripping's good. The windows are not having any incoming, air or seeps that might be caused by normal wear and tear. And so we actually sent out a letter to just make sure that residents know that this is something that we suggest and it is expected. So I actually have tenants reaching out to me asking if we have any faucet covers. And so I think that is going to be something that we provide up here for our residents. If they come in and pay rent, hey, we have some faucet covers we'd love to give you for your front and your back, faucet. And they're $2. I mean, and how I think that
you could sell them for $5.
Well, yeah, you could sell them, but I think I would just give it to them because I think that whenever I went to go buy some for my personal home, it was too late and they were all sold out. And so I might just go buy them all out and then just make sure all of our owners are connected or covered. Because
Look
I
at
think
that free faucet covers from Hattie Day.
Don't hold me to it.
Yeah.
I think if Home Depot has enough, I think that would be like a great pop buy for colder months for property managers that might want to do something.
Even Amazon.
Yeah.
Just check that out.
Yeah.
Are you guys winterizing like sprinkler systems on houses that have that?
Absolutely. So making sure we're turning those off and, disconnecting the water source from there as well. That was a good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Of course. And then the other thing too, that I have to do it every year on my properties also, and also my personal home. But the grass in West Texas goes dormant, so you don't have to have landscapers come out every week to cut your grass. So trailing that off, maybe turn it into like a once a month landscape maintenance or once every 2 months, depending on the property. A lot of the properties have xeriscape and turf, so they don't have the same ongoing maintenance. But and then we talked about clients that are or tenants that are leaving. If they're going on vacation, how are you coaching them on like how to take care of their property? Like, hey, leave the heater on 65, open this up, put the faucet covers on, same thing.
Yeah,
right?
Same thing. And then, of course, we are letting them know about our office closure hours and then providing them with an emergency contact email and phone number. If anything does happen, our maintenance team is always on standby. And so just letting our tenants know that if something does happen like this is something that can be fixed immediately, and just please don't hesitate to reach out as soon as possible, because we would hate for a repair to, be left alone for 24 to 48 hours. The good thing about about a multifamily for investors out there is that you typically can, the other side, if they're both occupied, you typically can, the residents can let each other know, hey, we're going to be out of town if you hear anything.
It's a buddy system.
It's a buddy system. Yeah. I've had a pipe leak during a freezing period, and the resident next door said, hey, my neighbors are out of town and their pipes broke. I just heard it bust, and we were able to save that property because of the neighbor.
That's great.
Yeah. And so I feel like all of our residents kind of know that we're just kind of one big happy family. And so I have people call me all the time, hey, just want to let you know that this was happening, and so I really enjoy all residents that kind of are my eyes and ears for me out there. Yeah.
Now, most important question, do you have to get notification to let Santa Claus into everyone's house?
24 hours notice.
24-hour notice. Does he get to go through the front door, or is he coming down the, most of our rental properties don't have fireplaces. So How are you getting Santa into the property?
That is a great question. I actually had a little girl ask me that the other day, and I think that it's definitely going to be from the side entry, but he does have to have a 24-hour notice, and if the resident doesn't approve, we might have to reschedule.
Yeah. Well,
the kids are going to be mad.
He's going to charge us a trip fee. He's going to have to come back. It's $250 to come back to the property.
The poor kids.
Yeah.
We're just joking with each other because there's been a lot of, appraisals and inspections, and the way that we're approaching, residents at those time periods is something that speaks volumes. And so we have done some adjustments on that. If a resident does have to have entry into the home, there are steps in place that we provide for our tenants, for safety for our owners, safety for our tenants, and the inspector or appraiser or anybody that's coming through the property.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Put your dogs away if you have a dog.
Now he's just being passive aggressive towards me.
No, not towards you at all. It's always something fun.
Yeah, it is. New every day.
Speaking of which, are you a Thanksgiving person or a Christmas person?
I think that...
Or what's your favorite holiday?
My favorite holiday is Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And it's because of the food.
Same.
Yeah, it's because of the food. But then I'm also like, it's like, can I have a tie? Like, can Christmas and Thanksgiving be together? Because I love them both. I think I love Christmas more now because I'm a parent, and playing Santa with my husband is absolutely the hardest thing I've ever done, because it's like 2 a.m. putting together a Barbie house. Have you been in that situation before?
Yeah. There's nothing like trying to put something together that was manufactured in China at 3 a.m.
Okay, so we did the same thing. We were like, this one's bigger. It's from China. I like this one better. And I think I'm going to buy the China one. But please don't buy you've heard it here. Please do not buy the China Barbie house. Buy the Barbie, the brand, the Barbie brand, please. It'll save you hours of putting together every single piece.
It's brutal. And somehow I always end up with like 19 extra pieces.
Yes.
And I'm like,
I'm just like,
pretty sure that was supposed to go on something.
And then it falls.
This electric Jeep might fall apart in the backyard.
Well, we were in Target the other day, and Caden said, he was like, hey, I want an electric bike. I was like, they make those?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, they're $550. I was like, perfect.
Yeah. You better be on the good list, kid.
Yeah.
No, I like Thanksgiving. Obviously when I was a little kid, Christmas was the best.
Yeah.
I was the crazy kid that would be like up first thing in the morning, like jumping on my kid's bed, like, it's Christmas.
4 a.m.
Yeah. But the older I get, I love Thanksgiving because typically my extended family's all together, and I love sitting around the table and just having a big meal. Yeah. Anyone that knows me knows that food and drink are like my favorite pastime, like spending time with people.
Yeah.
And just reflecting on the year, and there's not these other distractions, right? The new toys and the excitement of opening presents and things like that. It's really just more focused on the relationships and the family. So I love that. Thanksgiving's by far. Plus you have football. So I'll just like get fat and sassy, sit on the couch, watch football. Take a nap. You'd be in a turkey coma. And then, Christmas is fantastic, but like you said, when you're a parent, you're like a little elf for your kids. You're putting everything together. They open the presents, then they want nothing to do with you. They just want to like go play with the presents that they just got.
And then like 30 minutes or like halfway through the day, they're like all like emotionally drained. They're like, I'm bored. I'm like, no, we just put together 20 plus presents. Yeah. You're fine. Like, so,
or they grab something from like 5 years ago and they're like, I'm playing with this. And we're like,
you're like, I shouldn't have even bought it. Yes.
I know.
So that's been
my kids are in a surprise. They're not getting any presents this year. I'm just buying them stock.
Interesting.
I'm just joking, but I wish that we could do that.
But I think that's important, actually.
That is a message to like I'm talking to the grandparents in my life, the aunts and uncles.
Yeah.
Stop buying my kids presents.
No.
Buy them stock in Apple, Facebook, Meta, Nvidia, Bitcoin,
Yeah.
whatever it is, buy them stock. The
Mhm.
last thing that we need is another cabinet full of 17 dolls that they already have replicas of. Most of the, I mean, I don't even know how you buy my kids stuff anyway. It's like you're going to buy them another doll. It might not be the exact same doll that they already have, but we've got 30 of them.
Yeah.
So stop.
Stop.
Make an investment in their future,
Well, that's
or
what.
make an investment of time. Like I
Yeah.
tell my parents that all the time. I'm like,
Yeah.
don't send presents, just show up, or just like FaceTime them and talk to them. And they're great about that. I mean,
Yeah.
they do that all the time. They travel out here all the time to come see their grandkids. But
Mhm.
instead of sending a gift, unless it's an experience that they can have,
Mhm.
last thing we need is more toys or clothes, or
I agree with that.
we got that covered.
I agree with it totally. I think that we had a podcast guest pretty recently that said that she puts it on her birthday invites, that she has a fund that they can Venmo directly to that fund, and she'll
That's
put
brilliant.
it in. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Who was that?
What was her name? Is her name Mallory Vasca?
Oh, Mal?
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, she's awesome.
Yeah.
Shout out Mal.
Yeah.
What's the name of her?
Isn't it Fueling Financial Freedom?
Fueling Financial
Yeah.
Freedom. Yeah,
Mhm.
she's great. So
yeah, so she actually gave me that idea, and I'm gonna definitely use that going forward.
I love
because
that.
yeah,
Very
I think it's
smart.
great.
What other advice do you have going into the holidays, or any
Yeah.
advice in real estate, property management, or just advice as a mom
Yeah.
for the holidays? What do you got?
Yeah, I think I would just advise investors, moms, dads, everybody out there to just keep going. Every day is going to be a new day. There are going to be, holiday chaoses that come our way. I don't even know if that was a word. I think I just made my own word up, but holiday chaos is going to be a thing, and we just have to make it through, and we're going to be in 2025 in no time.
Yeah.
So I think that if you're an investor, now is always the time to buy. I think don't wait. And if you're a mom and a dad, you just keep going, and tomorrow's a new day, and
that's our
we'll
only
make
choice.
It through.
Just got to keep going.
Yeah.
Don't talk about politics over the holidays. That'll keep your family together. But if you are going to talk about politics, you should talk about the Trump tax cuts that should be coming back in 2025. Bonus depreciation back to 100%. Game changer for real estate. If you don't know about it already, follow my channel. Carlton Dennis is another great resource for that. But look into cost segregation, bonus depreciation. It's literally a magic bean that will sprout returns for you for like infinite returns for the rest of your life. It's money that otherwise would have been sent to the federal government that you can use to purchase assets, and it will change your financial future hands down more than anything outside of a windfall from like hitting the lottery or getting some a dead relative leaving you a bunch of money. Figuring out how to move money that would have otherwise gone to the IRS into assets that are performing for you is my gift to you for Christmas. I would definitely look into that. And if Trump passes these tax cuts in 2025 and makes it retroactive, all of the property that you've purchased as an existing client from Sedera Wealth, you can go back and claim the remaining difference of your bonus depreciation. So that will keep more money in your pocket. And then moving forward, keep adding, use those tax savings to keep buying property. And it's slow and steady wins the race. I say this all the time. There is no get rich quick scheme. We're not trying to sell you on anything like that. It's just tried and true, steady formulas for building your portfolio, building your wealth. Yes, there's other ways to make money that are outside of real estate, but guess what? I'm not smart enough to do all those things. The only thing that I know is real estate. And so that's what I want to share with you, and hopefully we can benefit from together. And Hattie, likewise, she probably has many talents, but she's an excellent property manager, an excellent resource in the real estate market. So lean on her expertise and mine as well. And we'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Other than that, happy holidays. We love you. Enjoy your friends and family. We'll have some new episodes still coming out, but I wanted to have this holiday episode, and we'll have Hattie on again soon.
Yeah, happy holidays, everybody. And we'll talk to y'all later.
Awesome. Thank you.